Now it's my pleasure to introduce our guests. Mike is a prominent sports journalist and a New York Times bestselling author of more than 40 works of fiction and nonfiction. A longtime friend to Robert B. Parker, he was selected by the Parker estate to continue the Sonny Randall and Jesse Stone series. I would definitely like to know more about that and how that happened. Joe Ide grew up in South Central Los Angeles, where his favorite books were the Conan Doyle Sherlock Holmes stories. He's held a variety of different jobs, including Hollywood screenwriter, before writing IQ, his debut novel, which went on to win the Anthony McCavity and Shamus Awards. And I think he has some news for us too that we're going to hear throughout this. Maybe a surprise, that's something that he's working on, but I'm not going to give it away. No spoilers. So without further ado, I'm going to let these guys get talking. I'm going to go dark. Enjoy the event.
Not a lot of people know this, but Mike and I grew up together in South Central LA. Those were the days, weren't they, Mike?
Well, you have always said that we were separated at birth, just because.
Mike was the shot caller. Mike was the shot caller. We were, what was the name of the gang? I think it was the Crips with laptops. It was something like that.
I think it was the Giants or the Jets, or maybe it was the Knicks. I forget. It was one of those. It was definitely one of those.
Okay. Stone's Throw.
Yeah.
It was the short version.
Oh, the short version. Jesse Stone is back, and the book opens with him saying, I've kind of had some fun in both series with Jesse and Sonny Randall. They kind of got together, but at the start of this book, I make it clear that they're definitely not together. And he's recalling their last conversation, a walk on the beach, and she asks him, "What do you miss more, baseball or drinking?" And he said, "Baseball." And she said, "Why?" And he said, "Because the worst day I ever had drinking was as bad a day as I ever had." He said, "The worst day I ever had in baseball was great." And he's out, and there's this piece of property in Paradise, Massachusetts, that is like the last valuable piece of oceanfront property. And this rich asshat named Thomas Lawton has decided to cash out. The family thought it would be protected forever, and he's going to get out of Paradise with the money. And that's not the worst part. The worst part is he's got two bigger asshats, a Vegas casino guy and a local casino guy, fighting over it. And they're going to come up to this idyllic little oceanfront community and build a casino and a hotel and a golf course. And one of the people who has been fighting it is the mayor of Paradise. And Jesse finds him that night on this property in a shallow grave. It's supposed to look like a suicide. Jesse doesn't believe it. These shallow graves are being dug by a bunch of really wonderful kids who are trying to protect the town. And their organization is called SOB, Save Our Beach. And before you know it, one of them has disappeared and died, and another one has disappeared. And Jesse is in the middle of, Joe, a good old-fashioned land war in this little town up on the North Shore of Massachusetts. But my motivating factor, Joe and I have talked about this, but my motivating factor in writing this book is I've always been jealous of Spencer and Hawk in the Spencer books. And I bring back Crow, Wilson Cromartie, a seriously badass Apache who's been on both sides of things with Jesse in the past. And
you don't know on this book. You actually don't know which side he's on.
No, he comes in working for the Vegas dirtbag, but it eventually becomes this extremely unlikely buddy movie with neither one of them trusting the other one, and that part of it in particular was a blast to write. And Molly Crane, who has always been a tremendous character, and I really felt like I beefed up her whole role in Fool's Paradise last year. She gets to be a real cop in this book. She shoots at people, she gets shot at, she gets hit, and becomes a bit of a badass herself. And I'll stop now, but the other thing that makes this whole dynamic interesting is the second time Crow showed up in one of Bob Parker's books. he and Molly, with the very married mother of 4, extremely Catholic, Molly Crane, has a one-night stand with Crow.
Mhm.
And it's almost like she's blaming him all this time later. So those scenes with them were really, really fun to write. And the land turns out to be more complicated, and it's got, I think, a pretty surprising ending. But it was a blast to write this book. It was a blast. Joe, it was a blast. You know, once you get rolling, once you pass the point where we all hit, I usually hit about 100 pages in where I think, where the hell am I going? I'm in this deep, because when I reach that point, because who do I call? I call you. Okay. And Joe knows the conversation will start something like this. Okay, so anyway, here's the setup. Not hello, not how are you, Joe, right? It's like I'm in mid-conversation by the time I call.
He never takes my advice, not once, but he calls me. So I guess that's something.
But it's good for me to talk about it. It's good.
The book is not a sequel, but it is sort of a continuation of these characters' lives.
Yeah.
And you talk about it like you're catching us up. And, the people have these very strong, long-standing ties, good and bad. They break up, they go away, they come back, like Crow. New people show up, and that changes the whole dynamic. And there's this sort of network of relationships that makes it feel like a real place, like there was life here before, I showed up.
Right.
And it's really nice to come back to a book like that and feel like, you're picking up with all these people you already know. It's a lovely feeling.
Yeah, and as you know, it's a different vibe for me. It's a different structure. It's a different form, because Sonny Randall, that's in the first person. We only see things from her point of view. I don't bring in any other voices, and writing in the first person is extremely fun for me, and it feels very comfortable. This is different. This is Jesse's point of view and Molly's point of view, and in this book, Crow's point of view, and writing from Crow's point of view and all his conflicts. And the only thing he's consistent about in this book is he still has feelings for Molly. Not that, he's going to get to act on them. And he becomes extremely involved, and not in a romantic way, but when one of the girls from SOB disappears, a young woman named Blair Richmond, something about her passion to save this land, a passion that he pretty much has never felt about anything in his life other than his next paycheck or a hit job or something. He needs to protect this girl. And that dynamic was really fun to write too.
Yeah, I mean, it just instantly adds this whole layer of tension, just like when he shows up.
Yeah. It's in the first scene when they're with the dead body at this area called the Throw, and why was it named the Throw, Joe? Because I like the idea of calling it Stone's Throw. So
it's shameful.
The land became the Throw because why, Joe? Because it's a stone's throw from the ocean. And they go back to the office, or no, before they leave, Molly says to Jesse, "I think I saw a ghost." Well, the ghost is Crow. And before you know it, they're all in a room together. And that's really where, the action of the book. Oh, and the other thing that kind of complicates everything is the dead mayor, his widow, Jesse once had a romantic relationship with. So that just
that's what I mean.
Further muddies the water.
Yeah, it's sort of walking. It's sort of like coming back to town when I read these books. So you come back to town, and what the hell's been happening? And things get more complicated, and there was more there than you ever knew. Like the mayor's wife. It's on the one hand, it's comforting. On the other hand, you really don't know what's going to happen. And I love these books.
No, well, thank you. But Joe, listen, there's going to be times when people think I'm blowing smoke at you, but I'm not. I'm an unbelievable Joe Ide fanboy. I've read each IQ twice, and he knows I'm now going back into a book we're going to talk about in a minute, which is his next book. And he makes me want to have a pad with me, so I can write down lines that I really like. And because I've got a lot going on. I'm very busy, so I forget things. Okay, but let's talk about IQ for a second. Let's just talk about IQ, because
Wait a minute,
that
I'm not done with your book.
I know, but I just want to say that ensemble that you have created and that world that you have created is a template for what I try to do with Jesse and Molly and Suit and Vinnie Morris, a reformed hitman, and Joe. I don't know if I'll never be able to write the vernacular and the cadences of the street as well as you do.
Yeah.
But Tony Marcus, the gangster, it's so hard for me to keep him out of these books. And I look for reasons. And there's a scene where Jesse not only becomes one of the few white guys to ever go to Tony's place of business, Buddy's Box, which is a restaurant and bar. Spencer's gone there, okay? Yeah. And Sonny's gone there. But Jesse becomes the first cop to ever set foot. And the scene between them, okay, in which two of Sonny's sidemen say, "You're going to have to give us your piece." And Jesse says, "No." And they say, "Yeah." And he goes, "If I was coming down here to shoot him, Tony wouldn't take the meeting." And he goes in and they go back and forth. So guys like Vinny and Tony are like your, the chorus, what I call it, the chorus in the IQ book, where those voices, as your series have gone on, have become more and more and more important. It's not just IQ. It's this crazy support system that he has.
It's what we both do. It's this world creation, and to keep evolving the world with each book that you write.
Right.
One of the things that struck me was the dialogue between Jesse and Sonny.
Yeah.
It's so funny and it's so sharp, and it has this way of tempering the pain, and sorrow of things, and there's this, and it turns in this really witty back and forth, as if they both know this is too hard to talk about in a serious way. And from a writing standpoint, you can write about dark things without bringing the book down.
Yeah,
keeping the tone fun and forward, and it's a hard thing to do, to write on all those levels, where you're not just thinking about what information is passing back and forth, but everything they say reveals character. And then there's the book itself to consider. Like, what effect does this dialogue have on the book itself, on the tone of the book? And I think it's a really effective part of the book, because the dialogue itself is really fun to read. It's really fun to read. It's really sharp.
It's fun to write too, and this because Elmore Leonard was a hero to both of us, and I was lucky enough to have him as a dear friend for the last 30 years of his life. But he wasn't. I didn't ask him about the secret to his success or his genius one time, and he said, "I just get him talking." He always felt that if you, and this is true, if you get them talking, then a plot will, them talking will tell you who they are, and them talking we've talked about this without us knowing it. It's propelling our story forward because of attitude and backstory, and it's Elmore always used to talk about, he loved pages with a lot of white space, because that meant a lot of dialogue. And he said, nobody ever skips dialogue. And that was part of it's part of his 10 rules of writing, which is leave out the parts that readers tend to skip, which is one of the great lines ever about writing.
Like the weather, just leave it out.
Yeah, did never start a book with weather. Exactly, that's 1 of the 10, right?
Yeah, I was going to tell you. You should have started with something else. But he said, everybody talks, meaning everybody is articulate.
Yes.
Everybody can say exactly what they want to say in their own vernacular.
Right.
And the effect of it is to elevate the character so that the thug or whoever he is no longer just a thug. He's a particular thug. Oh, and it's you read his books, you don't really notice it, but he could go 5 pages of dialogue, never say anything about the guy's appearance, and you know who he is. You know who he is.
There's no physical description. He never has, and he always said the character makes you know what they look like. And I in my life, I never thought of that. But that was one of his mantras, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when I saw the Spencer movie, I forget the actor's name. I just went, that's not him. That's
Mark
not
Wahlberg.
It's not Spencer.
No.
What? But I never knew what Spencer looked like.
No, he's got a broken, his nose is kind of broken, and he's a very big guy. And other than that, you really have to sort of see him yourself, because he certainly didn't look like Robert Urich in the old television show. Okay.
No.
And then Joe Mantegna, who does an unbelievably great job with the audiobooks, he played him in some television movies, but he didn't have the physical presence that you imagine that you can just see at the start of the fight in the bar that Spencer's going to can reach over and take the guy by the neck and lift him up off the ground and then hit him a couple of times for fun.
Yeah. Spencer has presence. He has experience, and you just, I mean, when he walks in a room. I mean, you just know when he walks in the room.
Yeah.
Everybody else knows he's walked in the room.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
And the funny thing about Jesse, Joe, is that Tom Selleck played him in like 10 television movies. But if you go back, there's one Spencer novel where Jesse, backstory, a Spencer novel, where they end up in paradise, and Jesse intersects with Hawk and Spencer. And Jesse's not nearly as big as Tom Selleck is. You get the idea, he's about 5'9" or 5'10", a very compact guy. I think he calls him a compact guy. So I never talk about what Jesse looks like. You just know he was a former minor league shortstop who had a great arm and missed out on going to the major leagues because he hurt his shoulder.
Yeah. But his whole way of being in the world, I mean, in the way he talks and the way he relates to people, you know what he looks like. I don't know if there's any actor who could ever actually be Jesse Stone or Spencer for that matter.
Yeah.
But I like that combination though. Jesse and Spencer and Hawk. Somebody's going to have to bring that back.
Yeah. Again, I've always been envious of Hawk. Hawk. It's like I've got a guy I consider a gay superhero in the Sunny book, Spike, her best friend Spike, who is a bruiser and owns a restaurant, and so I lean on that relationship a lot. But I was bound and determined that Crow was coming back in this book, and I can almost guarantee you, my friend Mr. Ide, that it won't be the last time that Crow shows up in a Jesse Stone novel.
He changed the whole vibe of it. I mean,
he did. He did for sure.
It got a lot more dangerous when he walked in the room. Just, I saw a ghost.
And Joe, there's a scene later in the book. This is how much he like pistol whips 2 of the side guys for the Vegas guy, and he finds out later that they didn't do the thing that he pistol whipped him for, and he doesn't give a rip. It was like, you know what? You would have done something later to deserve this pistol whipping, so deal with it.
And everybody makes mistakes. So I mean,
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
I wasn't mad at. I wasn't mad.
No
at
harm, no foul. But except there was a foul. It was what do they call it? Flagrant. It was a flagrant foul.
That's right. That's right. But you need a presence like that. I mean, that really, yeah, that really cranked it up for me.
Well, I'm glad because again, everything that happened in that book organized around that relationship. And then there was the ripple effect of his old relationship with Molly and the fact that Jesse, you're right. Jesse's in some pain because he loves Sonny Randall.
Yes.
And I think in this book, it begins to occur to him that they just cannot make it work. She's gone out to LA on this case and she's out there for an extended period. And it's funny I'm about 2/3 of the way through a new Sonny right now. And she's thinking, I wish I could call Jesse to talk about that because we were always good at talking things out. And Jesse has the same feeling in this book. And it was fun when they were together, but there was a part of me thinking, that I just didn't know how far I could take it. I think did
you think it was a natural ending, or that you just didn't know what you were going to do with it?
I just didn't know how, I just could never see them getting married, for example. Okay. And I feel that I have no idea what you're going to do in the next IQ, but I feel like you have that feeling about his romance too, because, it's very much up in the air, very, very like levitating, like that up in the air at the end of Smoke.
I'm writing that now, and I don't know.
You still don't know. How far are you into it and you don't know?
I'm about 40,000 words.
Really?
Yeah.
You still don't know. That's great, though.
I don't know. I don't know what happens. I mean, I just don't know what happens. I mean, part of it is chase and finding her, but once they get together, I have no idea what they're going to do.
Right.
I really don't.
No, but that's part of the fun of it. Alan Bennett, the great English, history boys and all that, Lady in the Van, once said the fun of writing is finding out that you know things that you didn't know you knew.
It's amazing.
Which is just a great line. But sometimes for me, the fun of it is the not knowing. The fun of it is saying, okay, it's like Yogi Berra said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Okay. And that's writing. That's writing for me.
It absolutely is. Yeah. I as we talked about, things occur we write what occurs to us. We're just sort of creating as we write. And you write a page, it informs the next page.
Right.
And it gives you ideas about the next 5 pages. But I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the scenes are. I have an idea of where I want the direction of the story to go. And everybody's sort of through line, but I have no idea what's going to actually happen. And, Elmer Runner's right. You just put the characters in a room, man, get them talking. Just get them there. And the more they bump heads and the more conflict they experience, the more we understand them by the decisions that they make.
The decisions they make. That's exactly right. That's exactly, I saw you, I forget where you were last year. I think you were doing one of these about Smoke. And you said something very funny where you were describing how you work. And it was pretty much what you just said. I write a page and that page gets me to write the next page. And then maybe at that point, I know what I'm going to do with the next 5 pages. And then you finally said, I would not recommend this. I actually laughed out loud when I was watching because I'm thinking, you just said, no, why would any sane person want to work this way? And then you go back and then we go back and writing is rewriting, as everybody knows. There's nothing original about that. But, I've got a whole big chunk of this thing that I'm working on now that I can't wait to go back to the unedited parts, my unedited parts.
Yeah.
And start beating the crap out of them, to try to make it better or to try to make it, the old cliche is be your best self, but I want the book to be its best self. You know,
Yeah.
that's what we all try to do.
Yeah, it's the book. And it's you know, you have to be curious about what the characters are going to do
Right.
and how they will grow. And you have to put enough obstacles, serious obstacles, in their way so that they make really interesting decisions, and interesting decisions that you would not make, and decisions that are full of risk. But it's that continually challenging that character to see what their decisions are. And so I throw things in the character's way. I try to keep some kind of conflict in every scene. I just keep throwing it in there, and it to see what they'll do.
Right.
Like,
Right.
what are you gonna do if I put a snake in your pants? Let's see. Let's go. You know.
Yeah, what you got, big boy? Yeah, there's a snake in your damn pants. What are you gonna do?
This brings out different parts of your personality. You know?
But Joe, when I would go around, and I've spoken at hundreds of schools talking about the kids' books, okay? And what you just said is what I say in every talk, okay? It's not going to be smooth sailing from point A to point B, okay?
Yeah.
And I tell them all the time, anybody can get knocked down. It requires no talent, no character, no spirit, no imagination.
Yeah.
We are all world class at getting knocked down.
That's right.
But it's how you get back up that tells the world about all those things: your resourcefulness, your heart, your toughness, your decision making, and ultimately, you know, that's what you do. That's at the heart of the IQ books. Okay, that's at the heart, because, and especially like in Smoke, where he's just been laid out by, you know, post-traumatic stress syndrome. Okay, and he gets out of the only world he's really ever known. Okay, I don't do that with Jesse in this book, but he's constantly challenged because and everything that he does is ultimately, he's got a code. He's got a code. And I'm not even sure he could properly articulate his code, but the code shows up in the actions that he takes. He's extremely loyal to his people. Okay.
Yes.
He's extremely loyal to this town. He showed up as a drunk, disgraced cop from Los Angeles, and now he's made a life for himself and found out something that it continues to surprise him. That is, he's an even better cop than he thought he was a baseball player, because he had always completely identified himself as a baseball player. But it becomes clear in these books that he's a great goddamn cop, and he knows he is, and he has great confidence in his ability to be. Now, he makes mistakes, and stuff happens in this book that he would not, you know, two people that he cares about get shot in this book. Okay. But
it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing that he discovers that in himself. It's a wonderful thing for him. I almost think of it as a person, and a wonderful thing for you to find as a writer, to be able to write those moments.
well,
And when I read you, like in any number of writers that I admire, you can tell that the writer is bringing an entire life to the book. It's like, you can tell that the writer has gone through a lot of stuff, you know, knows stuff, and has come up with a lot of, encountered a lot of conflicts of his own, and met a lot of good people and bad people on his own. You can sort of feel that experience coming through the book. And I think part of that is writers look at the world in a different way. They're not in a different way so much as they look for different things. Well, when you like, when I enter a social situation, you know, I'm not a participant. I consider myself a spy.
I was just trying to get the visual of my friend Joe Ide even being in a social situation.
Yeah, well, that's yeah.
Oh, I just don't feel it's like, oh, good, Joe finally got here.
No, it wouldn't be me. But I expect you the same way. I mean, you're watching people and you're listening to people, and you're trying to figure out what they're about.
Yes.
And you're looking for details, and you're looking for what's behind whatever it is they're saying. And you know, that's sort of, I imagine, second nature for the both of us. You know, I walk my dog the same time, almost the same time every day. So I'm walking down the street, neighbor lady comes out of her house, and I know she was waiting for me. I know she was waiting for me because she came out a little too quickly, you know? She's walking, you know, a little too eager, like to get the mail, right? So we converge on the sidewalk, and she immediately starts telling me about her trip to India. You know, that, you know, she took a raft up the Ganges and she ate street food. She didn't get sick, and she went to the temple with all the rats. And I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, you know, she's not telling me about her trip to India. She's telling me, look how adventurous I am.
Yeah.
Look what a risk taker I am.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not just a rich lady lying around in my house. You know, I'm out there. I'm cool, you know. And because I know that about her, I can write about her. You know? It's that, you know, it's that way of looking around, you know, and not taking things for granted and trying to see behind things and looking for little things that are human, that are just human. And it's like, I'm getting on the freeway. There's this homeless guy standing on the center divider, and he's got his shopping cart, and he's all bedraggled, and he's got his little cardboard sign. And then I pull up next to him, and the sign doesn't say food; it says alcohol. And I thought, well, at least he tells the truth. No, and I rolled down my window and I gave him $1.
Alcohol, honest to God,
Yeah.
in my life, I've never seen that. In my whole,
You know, I mean, that's going to be in a book somewhere, you know, and these little anecdotal things, they sort of add, you know, to the fabric of actual life. Just being able to see that and note it. You know, there's a 7-Eleven I go to when I go to 7-Eleven, and there's always this crowd of kids out in front, these hard kids, some winos, and they're always making a lot of noise and drinking, and they don't leave until the cops show up. And it used to drive the owner, Danny, nuts, you know. And so the other day I drive up there, and Danny is playing classical music on the outdoor speaker. No kids, no winos.
really,
You know, look, if Danny's my store owner, my character, and he does that, you know, he's no longer just a store owner. You know, he's a character. You know, he's a
oh
character.
my God, that's great.
You just, I mean, but those are the kinds of things you look for just walking around. It's a different thing for a writer. You know?
No, I see stuff every day walking my dog. Where I'm sitting is I look out on the, we live at the end of this cul-de-sac, okay? And there's this fascinating, you know, some have dogs, but I see them walking, and there's this very nice woman who lives on the other side of the circle. And she's always on her phone as she's walking, but she always looks happy. And I watch her and I'm thinking, whoever is at the other end of that phone, whether it's a daughter or a friend or a sister or someone,
Yeah.
it sustains her every day on this walk. I'm going to tell the story I told you. We talk a lot about our dog. I mean, Joe has this great dog, Jolly. I have these 2 small dogs that are insane and great. Okay. And one is the friendliest dog. Nellie's the friendliest dog in the world. Maya is maybe the cutest, smartest animal I've ever known. And as long as she's with us, she's happy. But if people commit the crime, the felony of talking to us, or there's another dog, she turns into a werewolf.
Yes.
So I go on my walk about the same time every day. Usually Taylor is with me, but she was away yesterday. And so I got myself into a situation on this big circle where I'd see somebody coming with a dog and I'd reverse course and I'd go the other way. And I'd get halfway around the circle, except then I'd see somebody else coming with a dog and I'd reverse again. And I told Joe, I started to think, I'll never get off the circle. I'm never going to make it home because there's too many people out walking their dog.
Right. So,
but it's one of my favorite parts of the day.
My advice was don't even try to train the dog.
No,
he's not going to learn it.
Some people
actual advice is find another circle. Just
all right. Now wait, we're this far into this. Joe Ide has written The Goodbye Coast. It will be out January.
Yes.
And this is such a brilliant idea. I wish I'd thought of it. This is the great iconic Philip Marlowe presented to Mr. Ide and brought into the present. And here's the difference between what he's doing. I have continued Bob Parker's Jesse Stone. Okay. I've given him New Adventures. I've given him my interpretation of him. But Joe has taken Marlowe, and thank the Lord he's still in Los Angeles, and just I think it's brilliant. I'm rereading it because I knew I missed too much stuff, because I see these books in their various stages when I'm lucky enough to see them when Joe's writing them, and every once in a while, we'll kick something around in his, but I can't improve him as a writer. But talk about, were you reluctant? I never asked you this. Were you reluctant at first to do it, and then you clearly made a decision that you weren't going to write, yeah, she was pretty enough to make a bishop kick a hole in a church window, which is what Chandler wrote.
Yeah, one of the members of the Chandler estate was in the airport, and he liked the cover of IQ. That's why he read it on the plane. And he decided, well,
our careers aren't very random, are they?
And they were looking for someone to write a contemporary Marlowe, and they decided to give me a shot. And it was something you just can't turn down. I mean,
no,
you couldn't turn it down. So I tried to write it in like a Philip Marlowe book, first person noir, but I didn't know how to do that. I mean, I didn't.
Right.
It's a whole different skill set, and so I can only write the way I write. So that part wasn't daunting. It was daunting thinking about all the people, millions of fans who might be disappointed. That was daunting.
Right.
Because there are a lot of, I would imagine that a lot of Philip Marlowe fans have expectations about a new Marlowe. That and how closely that this Marlowe would, be to the previous Marlowe, and what the similarities were, and all of those kinds of things. I worried about that, but again, I can only write the way I write. So,
right.
So, hold on. Wait. Dee, go lie down, take a corn. I can't deal with this now. I cannot. Sorry.
Do you have a situation?
I do.
Do you want me to just talk to myself for a minute? I can do that.
For 1 minute, talk to yourself.
Yes.
I'll be back.
All right. When we started tonight, I was asked how I got into the Parker world. Okay, I'm going to tell that story because it's a good story. Joe already knows the story, so it doesn't matter. I had read everything Bob Parker wrote. He was my friend. I'd been to his house. We'd been on radio shows together. We used to email each other during the baseball season. I considered him a good friend. We'd see each other on book tours. And he was one of my writing heroes. And he was a mentor without him knowing his mentor, because he had a tremendous influence on my own writing. So my daughter rides. She's a champion show jumper horses. And she was going to a show in Vermont, and she and my wife were already up there. I was driving up, so I plugged in an old Sonny Randall for the ride up. About 3.5 hours. Kate Burton, who's still doing them for now that I'm writing the books. Brilliant. And I get there, and my Joe's my agent, Esther Newberg, is the executor of Bob Parker's literary estate. I'm just telling the story of how I got into the world with Sonny Randall. You know this, yes. And I'll wrap it up. And I called Esther and I said, why has no one continued Sonny? They continued Jesse, they continued Spencer, they considered the Westerns. And she said, I'll find out. She calls Ivan Held at Putnam. She calls back an hour later and she said, write a sample chapter. I said, no. I have enough to do. I was just curious as a Parker fan. Yeah. And Joe will know this tone of voice, what I'm about to tell you. She said, Michael, write the chapter. I got up in the morning, I wrote 10 pages, that pretty much turned out to be the first chapter of Blood Feud, my first Sonny Randall. And Joe, literally the moment I wrote the first conversation between Sonny and Spike,
Yeah.
I knew I was exactly these characters were so alive to me. I'd lived in this world in my head from the time I picked up the God Wolf manuscript, Bob's first Spencer when I was in college. And the first conversation, it begins with her saying to Spike, do I look like I'm getting older? And Spike said, this is a trap. And she said, no, the UPS kid mammed me yesterday. And Spike says, I assume you shot him. And I'm literally, from that moment, we both worried. And the Marlowe fans are passionate. The Parker fans are passionate. But ultimately, then you just got to tell your story. Bill Goldman used to say, all I ever wanted to do was tell my stories. And once you feel like, not that you know where the story's going, but you know who these people are. And you know that they're coming alive inside your own imagination, then you're going. Then you're going. Then all you think then is, okay, let me not screw this up.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. Let me not screw this up. And it's a question of just rewriting. You just keep rewriting. Somebody the other day asked me about voice. And I think it's very much related to rewriting. And I didn't have my own definition of voice. I knew what other people thought, but I didn't have my own definition. And it occurred to me while I was rewriting the second IQ book that when I write a book, I'm making literally thousands of decisions.
Yes.
Thousands of decisions, this word, that word, red hat, blue hat, left turn, right turn. And those decisions cumulatively are my voice, because no one would make the same decisions as me.
Right.
But it assumes, it assumes that you ask the thousands of questions in the first place. And that's what I tell aspiring writers. You don't, no work ethic, no voice. It's just, sorry.
Pete Hamill once said that a writer's voice is like a boxer's left hand. You either have one or you don't, and but asking questions and being curious is the key. I am at this scene in the book I'm writing, and it involves a fisherman, and his boat basically comes back without him. And my friend across the street owns 2 seafood restaurants. And I'm out walking the dogs the other day, and I said, how often do fishermen go out at night? And he said, I don't know, but I'll find out. And he goes and he asks one of his waitresses, whose boyfriend was a fisherman. And I said, because it would really help me if they go out at night. I'd like the boat to come back in the morning. And that's how I found out. By then, I'd already decided I didn't give a rip whether it went out at night or in the morning. I needed an empty boat with blood on the deck, and that's what I ended up getting.
I have this character in the next IQ book.
Do you have a title yet?
No.
Okay. I don't have a title for Son either.
Yeah. Well, it'll come to you. So he gets out of prison because he was in the first book, and he goes after Isaiah for revenge. But I didn't, he got thrown in prison for some serious stuff. And so I had to call call my attorney friend to say, is there any way he can just do 5 years in prison?
Right.
And can we construe the charges and the penalty so it's just 5 years instead of 5 to life? So it's a kind of.
You needed 5 years. You didn't need 10 years.
I just needed 5.
5 years.
Yes, that was
5 good years in prison.
Yes, and she managed to do it. She's a really good attorney.
I have an attorney that I'm working with on the book I'm writing, and he's great and smart, and he's just so generous because it's the first time I've had anything with courtroom scenes.
Yeah.
And it's another way to kind of stretch out. Do we have any, I know we're getting late here. Are there questions that Joe and I didn't answer?
You're answering a lot of the questions we already asked. I think our audience wants to know, what you're both working on next. which we have heard from Joe, but we wonder, Mike, what you're working on. And that you maybe perhaps have a new kids book coming out soon.
I have a new kids book. Hold on.
Oh, listen, while he's doing that,
Yeah.
look, okay.
There you
That's-
go. I love this. I gotta wait. Stay right
It's
like that.
dueling covers. Wait, it's dueling covers. Wait.
I know. Hold on. I'm gonna.
Wait, really? Okay, 2-on-1.
Okay, that's good. This is so good. This is great. Good. Wow.
All right.
Oh, one more time, Mike. I want to see.
All right.
Okay, got it. Defending champ. Can you tell us a little bit about
I'll
that?
tell you really quickly. It's a character I've written about, a spectacular 12-year-old girl named Alex Carlisle, who played quarterback on the boys' football team in the first book, and just showed up and kicked all their asses. And in this book, she's decided to play spring soccer. They have canceled the girls' team, but not the boys' team in this town because of budget cuts. And the girls come up with an idea to raise money so they can have a season that it'll be the girls against the boys. And it gets built up into being like a Super Bowl. But these girls are basically, if they can raise enough money, they can have a season. And you know, being a parent of 4 and coached them all and everything, these seasons are tremendously important to these kids. And then they find out that it's not so much about who wins this game, but about the event and what they're all trying to do. It's a fun book. It happened just by chance. It came out on Tuesday when Stone's Throw came out. But you know, I've had this other life, for a wonderful life, for a long time, writing for young readers since Travel Team a million years ago.
Yeah, can you actually tell us about? I did sort of a deep dive before hosting tonight. Can you? You wear so many hats. What do you like the most? It seems like you love the young adult books. I saw you on Good Morning with Joe. Joe, good morning.
Joe, oh, morning, Joe.
Morning, Joe, recently talking about.
Yeah, Joe, why don't you tell what you said about my appearance?
What'd you say?
Tell what you said about my appearance on Morning Joe.
I thought that he's much more entertaining and sympathetic and interesting when he's not talking to me. I was really surprised. And by the way, you know, I've seen you talk sports any number of times, but on that show, I was reminded you don't F around when you talk about sports.
No, I don't.
I mean, you were talking about people who are in Stupidville.
Stupidville, that's my mythical
Not,
life.
I disagree with
going to
him.
bring that up, but I loved that. The Stupidville. I loved
It
it.
wasn't even I disagree or difference of opinion or we talked about Stupidville. You are in Stupidville.
Yeah.
I thought I was very impressed actually.
And Mike Barnacle is one of my favorites. I'm a Boston girl, so the whole dialogue and
Mike told me afterwards something that I can't wait to write is that he said Stupidville is right next. It's the next town over to Selfish Town. And he said, I don't want to hear these guys who aren't getting vaccinated talk about how it's all about the team. And the only thing that matters is the team. Because if they cared about the team, they'd go out and get the shot. Period. This is, don't get me started on this. This anti-vax thing is the dumbest American moment of my adult life. I can't imagine that I've ever encountered anything this dumb.
We're not gonna elect you to reach across the aisle.
No, I'm not an aisle reacher acrosser. No, not that guy. Not that guy, because nobody would have read my column if I was that guy.
All right, let's transition here. 2 books that you would recommend, Joe. 2 books that you would recommend, Mike. Either mystery genre, non-mystery.
You go first.
Okay.
I've been reading Thomas Perrin,
right. Yeah.
I read. I've just read Metzger's Dog and
Butcher Boy.
I'm sorry.
Did you read Butcher Boy? That's one.
Yeah, Butcher's Boy and Metzger's Dog.
Yeah.
But if you want to read somebody whose writing is brilliant but simple, like declarative, straight ahead, unfancy, like mine, and is just so effective and can express anything he wants to express, read Thomas Perrin.
He's so great because he has just played his game his way for a long time and never. I've gotten to know somebody a little bit on Twitter because I am stupidly late coming to his work, and that's William Kent Kruger. He's who writes Minnesota Mysteries and is just great. And he just, again, he makes me want to know about that world of where it's cold and the snow and all like that. And it's, I mean, these guys help you learn. They help you learn. They make you, you know, they make you better. I'm writing books with James Patterson now, and it has been a blast because I'm telling you, it's like a masterclass on how you move a story. And his, you know, I've got these little notes I leave on my desk, you know, you know, he and Conley too, stay in the scene, stay in the moment. And we talk about it all the time. He goes, I don't want a lot of backstory here. Stay in. Too much backstory. Stay in the moment. But I'm telling you, it's all that to me. That's part of the fun of it because you feel like you're getting better. You know, you're getting. Sparky Anderson, the great old baseball manager. I went to do an Esquire piece on him one time when he was managing the Tigers long after he'd managed the Big Red Machine. And I said, what's the best at this stage in your life? What's the best part of being a baseball manager? And he, you know, there's growly voice, he had white hair. He always had white hair. And he looked at me and said, Mike, I know how to do it now. And I thought, oh my God, with it not in a cocky way, almost like in a I know how to do it now. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what? After everything he's done in baseball, he's come to this place where, and it's not whether to hit and run or whether to steal a base. It's just managing men and managing that team. And I don't feel like I know how to do it now, but I do feel like I'm getting better. You asked a question about the kid. I loved writing the kids' book. They put me on the map in a way I'd never been as a novelist. But there was always a part of me that wanted to go back to writing mysteries. I started out, I wrote 3 mysteries back in the 80s and 90s about a New York television reporter named Peter Finley. I got to write one of them as a CBS Sunday night movie, which, by the way, I have a cameo as a bartender. And I'm sure Joe, I'm sure people watched that scene and thought, how did they let that little 12-year-old boy slide that drink across to me?
That's great.
But those books, Robert B. Parker, John D. McDonald. Oh my God, I love the Travis McGee books. I love the Travis McGee books, you know, and that was always an itch that I needed to scratch. And now I have been unbelievably privileged to get to write these books that I'm writing now.
Yeah, we are privileged.
Wow. Well, I think that's a great way to wrap up this amazing conversation. I love the rapport between two of you. One thing I was going to ask is, do you get support from other writers, and how do you get support from other writers? You answered the question, you know, hello, Joe. Hello, Mike. I'm stuck. Where should I go? So,
and you know what else? You know what else? He's constantly trying to up my sneaker game. He's trying to, if he gets a new pair of sneakers, he bullies me into getting them. Okay. All of a sudden I'll go to my email.
It's fashion advice.
No, it's like we're 12. Advice. What?
It's fashion advice. It's not.
All right. What do you have on your feet now? Let's see.
Wait, he'll recognize these. Wait.
Okay. I'm ready.
Oh, see, those are the ones that I bought. And I only bought them. See, and they look nice.
Taking your advice.
But it's a form of cyberbullying. I really do believe it is. I do.
Listen, don't forget to buy the book. Just click, use, make sure you go to an independent bookstore, hopefully ours, and please make sure to support these two great writers. What a fantastic night. Thank you. Good luck, Mike. Happy congratulations on your publishing.
Let me just say one more thing. Joe Ide, he is my friend forever, and I thank him again for doing this tonight.
Terrific. Come back with your new book to our place. Okay?
Yes, I
All
will.
right.
Absolutely. He'll,
Bye-bye. Thank you so
All
Good
much.
night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.